Welcome to O-State Daily. I'm Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Hey, it is Kansas State week. It's a huge week for Oklahoma State football, looking to get back on the right track after a week off of football. So, hey, Chase, good to have you join me again, and excited to get this O-State Daily podcast going.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. It's going to be an interesting week.
I know how excited I am about the podcast and getting it going. Not exactly how excited I am to watch OSU play K-State, though, right?
It's going to be a tough game. I'm not saying that it's impossible to beat them, but they're going to have to play really, really good.
No doubt. And you know, one thing at every level of football, especially the higher you go, the better the quarterback play you get, the easier it is to win games. We see that at the NFL level. You can take a bunch of real average players and put them around a Tom Brady, and all of a sudden you're winning Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
Or not necessarily average players, but just, you know, maybe players that aren't necessarily man for man better than the other team, but if you have a Tom Brady with them, then you can win a Super Bowl with them. Okay, sure. K-State has Willhoward. He's been around since, I think, 1975 in the Big 12, and I think he was in the Big 8, maybe even the old Missouri Valley back in the day. Oklahoma State, they've named alanbowman, who is the transfer from Texas Tech and Michigan. So as far as the experience goes, in terms of being in one system and being established, it looks like a pretty big mismatch. Willhoward versus Alex Bowman.
Yeah, man, Willhoward's been there for, I think it's his 6th year. So he's finally done after this year, yes. Unless he finds another way to get another year. But in terms of, you know, he's been in that system for 6 years. He's had a lot of time to learn the offense, learn, you know, their schemes and things like that. And then he's a high quality football player too. Bowman, I'm not really surprised that he's the starter again this week. He played fairly well last week, and I think I know what they're doing, but I'm not going to go into detail on it. But you know, I think that, you know, with him being in a new system and things like that, there's still going to be flaws that happen. But I'm hoping with this being his 3rd week, you know, counting the Iowa State week and the bye week, and then now this week, you know, it's his 3rd full week as a starting quarterback running with the starting offense and stuff like that. I think you're going to see a little bit better. What's the word?
Camaraderie.
Yes, sure. And just better communication. Everybody's on the same page, and I think you're going to see a little bit more of that this week now that they're not rotating as much.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, you see vanilla play calling, and it's because whenever you have new guys or guys that you're not exactly sure how well they've meshed together, you're scared to do much other than, you know, maybe a couple of 3 or 4 base concepts. You know, not necessarily plays, but concepts. Coach Gundy likes to build plays off of different, you know, like an inside zone. Then he'll put a backside, you know, quarterback pull off of that. Then he'll put a quarterback pull the ball and throw it off of that. So out of one concept, a zone concept, he'll have 4 to 5 plays off of that, and then he'll have 4 to 5 concepts. He'll run those 2 to 3 times a game. That gets him to the 60, 70 plays a game when you add in the punts and then the punt returns and all those kinds of things, penalties and things like that. So that's pretty much how he builds his offense. So it makes it difficult whenever you have, you know, a lack of communication and you're not settled on, you know, who's going to be there or what, to really get too fancy in terms of the concepts that you want to throw out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And understandable. You know, it's you have to know what you're working with. I think it's, you know, they had some trouble figuring out who they were going to be, you know, what their identity was going to be, and I still don't know if they know that. You know, I would say with this only being the 2nd week that we have a starting quarterback, I think they're still working on it. But I do think that you're going to see a little bit more. I hope to see a little bit more creativity in the play calling and stuff like that. Now that you've had, you know, 3 weeks of practice under your belt, he's been on campus since this summer, so you kind of know what he can do. And now it's just getting things to click, you know, and allowing him to make plays and stuff like that. You know, I'm not sure, you know, just with how things have gone, how the play calling is going to be. I think you are going to see a little bit more, but I'm not sure how much more. It seems like with a kaseydunn call offense, there's not a ton of creativity to begin with. So I'm hoping that, maybe you see just a tiny bit more than you've seen the past, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, you would think so. And hey, I was watching K-State play then just some past games of theirs, and the Brennan Presley, you talk about being creative. If the Oklahoma State offense is going to be creative, it needs to start with him, because I think he is their most explosive player on the field. If you need any evidence, you mentioned this in our last podcast, just go back and watch that kick return he had against OU, or some of the plays he made even a couple of years ago at Iowa State, or any of the athletic plays he's made, or ask anybody that saw him at Bixby. He is very, very explosive. You know who he reminds me of? You know who he should be in this Oklahoma State offense?
Who's that?
Speaking of playing Kansas State tomorrow.
Who's that?
You know who he should be? He should be deucevaughn.
Yeah,
That's
should.
exactly how he should be used.
Absolutely.
Just watching K-State play, deucevaughn would line up in the backfield, and they would run a counter, and he would get behind his guard and tackle, and he would get lost behind those two big guys pulling around. Then all of a sudden, he'd just jet out like a dart out like a jet, and then they would swing him out of the backfield. They'd run him on some follow patterns. They would run that zone, and they'd pull the H-back back across. They'd send the H-back out for a pass. They'd have deucevaughn follow him after he acted like he was pass blocking. They'd swing him out for a pass and just get him out in the open, and then they would sometimes just line him up as a receiver and throw him the ball. If OSU needs a blueprint of how to use Brennan Presley, I just think they need to turn on the videotape of Kansas State and just watch 5 minutes of how deucevaughn got used last year.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Brennan Presley's a little bit bigger,
a little taller, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he's as
I think
fast.
Is 5'6".
Yeah, I don't know if he's as fast. Deucevaughn was freakishly fast. But in terms of athleticism and things like that, I think that they can be comparable. And going back to the press conference on Monday, Gundy actually brought it up himself. He said that they have to get Presley more involved. They have to. They said that luckily, and I don't know if he'd say differently, but they said that, he's continued to be a leader. He's continued to have a good attitude and stuff like that. That's not a guy that you want to lose. You do not want to lose him next year. You've got to find a way, not only for, keeping him for that sake, but also for the sake of your offense. He's an explosive player, and he's going to make plays if you get him the opportunity to make plays. But only giving him 2 and 3 opportunities a game is not going to do it.
Yeah, and really, it's like watching K-State's offense. I just get so jealous because, hey, one play they're running counter, the next play they're running zone, then they're running zone away where they're zoning this way and they're handing it to a fastback going the opposite way. So you get the defense to kind of take that first step in the wrong direction, and then you send a really fast running back like deucevaughn around the other edge of that, and it, then they do that kind of stuff. They pull their center, they pull their guard, they pull their tackle, they pull their H-backs, and then they do that, and then they'll pass the ball after they're pulling all these guys. And so, like, they'll pull their right guard. So, like, the linebackers will be reading the guards.
Right.
So the linebackers reading that pulling guard will step up thinking it's a run play, and then all of a sudden they'll pull it, and they'll throw a slant right behind where the linebacker stepped up from. And they just do all of those types of things. Then about the time they get you going downhill like that, they'll swing a ball out to deucevaughn. They'll hit one of their fast outside receivers. They also have just tremendous inside receivers on, say, a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. They'll just send a 6'5" dude out there and just have him post up almost like he's getting a rebound in basketball.
Yeah.
And, the thing about Willhoward is he's so tall that on a 3-step drop, that if he just has a 3-step drop and throws it to a 6'5", 6'6" tight end that's posting up, and they only need 3 or 4 yards, you're not stopping it. So they have literally every type of structured concept in play that you could possibly want to attack a defense with. They have coaches that know how to do it. Colin Klein is just, my opinion, Colin Klein is an elite play caller, not a good one. He is an elite play caller. He knows the exact, and what makes an elite play caller, Chase? First of all, obviously, the concepts you want to run, how you want to defeat different types of defenses. Then you go out and you find the type of player offensively that runs that system perfectly, and you put them all in the perfect roles, and then it comes out like it does K-State.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they do a phenomenal job on both ends of the ball, and it starts with their coaching. Their coaches are extremely impressive. Sorry about the
very
dogs.
impressive.
They they're young. They have a good energy to them. They know how to let the guys have fun, and they know how to be effective. It wasn't too long ago that they were taking snaps and stuff like that, which I think is beneficial. I think having young guys with good playing experience and things like that is always a benefit. And then on top of that, you were mentioning how they use their linemen. I can speak to you as a former defensive end. I'm always reading tackle. So if I see the tackle, if I see the tackle pull, I am in his back pocket, because more than likely you're getting a counter to the opposite side.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get a tackle for loss and you do that a couple times and maybe you get him 1 or 2 yard gain. And then next thing you know, the quarterback pulls and I'm 2 or 3 steps behind. I'm not going to catch him. So then he's on a rollout pass with no pressure. And it's a hard thing to stop.
Running the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really hard thing to stop. And they know how to use each different player in their offense, from their center to their tackles to their quarterback to the tailback to the wideouts. I mean, they do a great job.
Yep, they do. And the thing that you have to do, though, I mean, like with every other team, you got to get the run game shut down. If you don't get the run game shut down, they're going to run those RPOs all day long, and your heads are going to be swimming. Not only do you have to get the run game shut down, I've mentioned a couple times, Oklahoma State point blank, they have to stop firing safeties. If OSU has to fire Kendall Daniels and whoever else is out there at safety to stop the run game, to make it an 8-man box, they have no chance. They have no chance of stopping any kind of decent. Well, we've seen that against bad offenses. They've left bad offenses wide open. I was looking at rushing yards per game. Oklahoma State is second to worst in the Big 12 in rushing yards per game. You know who the worst team is?
Iowa State.
Yeah, the one Big 12 team OSU's played, right? And there were times where OSU made that offense for Iowa State look really, really good. So the key tomorrow night defensively for Oklahoma State, that odd stack 4-2-5, whatever numbers you want to call it. What it is for an offensive coach is it's numbers. It's a 6-man box, right?
Yeah.
4-2-3-5. Okay, whether you have a nose guard, if you have 5 techniques, or if you have 3 techniques, or if you're in a forefront and you have a 1 and a 3, whatever, okay? Right. All of that to say it's 6 guys in a box. Whatever your angles are, your rules are going to take care of those 6 guys. So, if you can stop K-State's run with your 6 guys in the box, Oklahoma State has a chance.
Yeah. And I think that the one guy that they need to just let him loose. I'm telling you, it's got to be Colin Oliver. Mm-hmm. You've got to just let him loose, let him play. And I'm not saying they're preventing him from playing, but he just has not.
Part of it is he's in that 3-3-5, so he's not really a true defensive end anymore.
Right. He's athletic. He's such a good football player. Let him use his athletic ability, his speed, his strength. He was extremely good as a freshman. He was extremely good last year, and then this year it seems like as a junior he's kind of fallen back a little bit, which that doesn't make any sense to me. You think with the progression and being in the system for 3 years, granted they've had 3 different defensive coordinators for when he's been there, but I'm talking weight room, strength conditioning program, stuff like that. You would think that he would be just an absolute stud, and he's been kind of silent this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with the defensive play calling. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge fan of either coordinator right now. I hope that things change and hope that things get better. Like I said last week, I think the Kaseydunn experiment's over, and I'm curious to see how the new guy does with the defense for the rest of the year. I think he got exposed against Iowa State, and maybe that woke him up a little bit. I hope. If not, it's going to be a long season. We're not going to score very many points, and then we're going to give up a lot of points. And it's hard to win football games like that.
Yeah, at the very least, Oklahoma State should be able to stop the run. It's as simple as that. You have good enough players up front. you have good enough linebackers, you should be able to stop the run against an Iowa State type team, against South Alabama, against teams like that. You should be able to stop the run without having to bring up, I know I've said it 1,000 times already, but without having to be so reckless as to bring up your safeties. Because the thing about the Big 12, and I mentioned this last time with Jim Knowles, the first thing he learned is no matter what you do with those safeties, the other team makes you wrong. So you can't have players on the field that are trying to play both run and pass.
Right.
You can maybe have a half of one of those guys. You know, they call that guy a half player, maybe an overhang, whatever you want to call that guy. But if you have more than a half of a player, that's when you say half a player, meaning he's playing half run, half pass.
Yep.
You can have that maybe one guy on that field, but if both of your safeties are both trying to play pass and run, these teams are going to read those safeties. They're going to make the safety wrong, and they're going to have wide open receivers all day long. So that's got to be the first adjustment. You have to have run players, which need to be your 6 box players. Then you need to have pass players, which needs to be your 5 secondary guys. Period. End of discussion. If you try to make them both, these Big 12 defenses, as Jim Knowles found out when he first came over, these Big 12, I said defenses, I meant offenses, they will absolutely expose that. That's literally the exact first thing that Brian Nardo has to do. Quit trying to have half players, meaning he's got 2 safeties and then another, you know, whatever you want to call them, that are all trying to play both the pass and run, and it just simply doesn't work. Not in this league with guys that have as many open-ended options offensively. Okay, so defensively, K-State, they run the kind of a hybrid odd stack like OSU. You know, I like the old 3-4 defenses that teams used to run, because I always felt like, and we've talked about this, Chase, you could jump in and out of a 3-4 and make it look like an odd stack. Yeah. You can make it look like a 4-2. You can make it look like the old Okie 5-2 without ever changing personnel. And that's kind of what K-State does. You're going to see them in an odd stack one down. You're going to see them in a 4-man front one down. Sometimes you're going to see them with a 7-man box. Sometimes you're going to see them even with an 8-man box. Sometimes you're going to see them with a 5-man box. This K-State defense, ran by their defensive coordinator, Joe Klanderman, is as multiple as their offense. Very impressed with the way they run it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another K-State defense. You know, I mean, I'm not a – and it sounds like I'm a big fan of K-State throughout this
I love
podcast.
the way they play football. I can tell you that.
They're a really good
I wish
football
OSU
team.
played football like they did.
They're tough. They're fast. They're strong. You know, they just beat the crap out of you. I mean, week in and week out, they are. I mean, they're just a tough team to play. It's like you see K-State on the schedule, and it's never really a like, oh, good, we get a week off kind of deal. You know, I mean, they could be, you know, 2-3 coming into this game or whatever, and it's still scary. K-State is just, you know, they're known for how big and they're physical. You know, they don't give up. They're just a well-coached, well-oiled machine, really, and they're hard to beat. They're always hard to beat.
Very, very hard to beat. So if I were to ask you tomorrow night at 6:30, what are the keys to the game for Oklahoma State to beat K-State, what would it be?
I think you have to be creative on offense. You have to. You've got to establish both the run and the pass. I think that you have to score on your first drive. I think that's a huge key. And you come out and you do some things that are different that they haven't seen on film. And now they're upstairs, you know, their defensive coordinator's like, oh crap, you know, this is kind of new. I'm not sure, you know, we haven't worked on this the past 2 weeks because they had a bye week too. You know, we haven't seen this. We haven't worked on this. Next thing you know, Oklahoma State's driving the ball down the field. And I think if you can score in that first possession with showing some different stuff, I think that you definitely have a momentum swing. Being in Boone Pickens, it's a blackout. I feel like the energy is going to be there. I don't know. You know, I'll be there. But you know, just that experience and stuff like that, you're going to have the fans behind you. Like I said, it's going to be a blackout, so that's always kind of cool. It's going to be loud. But I can tell you, if you don't stop them on defense, first of all, and you can't score I would say at least 21 points. There's no way you win, you know? So I think that you've got to
take more than 21, I think.
You've got to be creative for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think specifically just looking at personnel, Brennan Presley needs at least 10 touches, whether that be receptions, targets. I say touches. Let's say targets. Let's be nice and say targets.
Sure.
Whether that be receptions, balls thrown to him, whether it be jet sweeps. Hey, they would line up Deucevaughn last year. K-State would and just run them around on a jet sweep. Same with Malik. I think his last name was Evans, something like that. They're really fast receiver last year. That was really good. They would line and they would run him on jet sweeps. So hey, 10. I think Brennan Presley needs to touch the ball 10 times, or at least be targeted 10 times tomorrow. I think Ollie Gordon needs about 15 touches, whether it be carries or receptions. I think Jadennixon needs somewhere around 7 or 8 because I think that dude can run. He's fast. He's another guy that can stretch the field for you. I think Elijah Collins needs 10 carries.
Yeah.
And I think Alan needs to have a 60% completion percentage. I think that's what it takes to beat K-State.
I'm 100% with you, and like I said, I've hoped, that they've had these last couple weeks to kind of regroup and rejuvenate as a group and stuff like that. Hopefully they come out fresh and they come out ready to go. Like I said, the atmosphere and stuff like that's going to be there. I don't think there's going to be a lack of energy. I hope so too. That they have a good opportunity to kind of be back, if that makes any kind of sense. And I'm not saying that they're going to come back and run the rest of their schedule, because that's not realistic. But what I say by be back is I think if you play within 3 points of Kansas State, I think that's a win, whether you're on the winning side or the losing side, because Kansas State is a really good football team. So I think that I really think they need a win.
Yeah. Yeah.
But realistically, I think if you play within 3 or 4 points of them, I think that's a success.
This is a very winnable game. I mean, K-State. It's not like K-State's like, Alabama with Tua Tagovailoa or whatever his name was running quarterback. I mean, their best runner averages a little over 100 yards a game. It's not like willhoward's. I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's very experienced, but he's also very inaccurate at times. I mean, you watch willhoward play, and I mean, he'll miss wide open receivers just, very bad. And alanbowman, I've been saying this, he is very capable. This guy is very capable. If you throw the ball to the right people, if you run plays to get the ball to the right people, if you figure out a way to be creative enough to have some kind of run game, like K-State always does, alanbowman's capable. I think Oklahoma State's defense has a good chance tomorrow at shutting K-State's run game down to an extent without having to be overly creative, because I just think they can use their 6 box players. I think they can shut down both lines of scrimmage. I think OSU can hold their own in the trenches. And then if they can shut the run down with their 6 box players, then in the back end, you can maybe send one guy on a blitz if it's 3rd and 11, something like that. And or, you can play tighter coverage, of which I think OSU's secondary will hold up just fine against K-State's receivers. So I do think this is a very, very, very winnable game. It just has to be mapped out correctly and then obviously executed as well. So it's going to be super fun.
Yeah, and in terms of execution, I want to talk about one more thing. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. You can't have dropped punts or muffed punts. You can't have dropped passes. You can't have fumbles. You can't have interceptions. And you also have to find a way for them to make mistakes. Put some pressure on the quarterback. Put some, tackle. I mean, simple as that. We have way too many missed tackles through these first 4 games, way too many missed tackles. So I think if they tackle, they find a way to get a turnover or 2, and they prevent turnovers, I think that they do have a good chance.
Yeah. You want to know how you make the other team make mistakes? Seriously.
How's that?
Think about how OSU's made mistakes this year. What has the other team done to them?
Pressure.
Now, the first thing they've done is they've gotten a lead, right? And then once they got the lead, they stopped OSU's run game.
Right.
They made OSU one-dimensional. Now the only thing OSU can do is throw the ball. That's how you make other teams make mistakes. That's how you make Will Howard make mistakes. Because at that point, if you know K-State, if you take K-State's run game away, let's say you get creative and you run 4 or 5 really cool concepts against K-State that's a little different that they're not ready for, and you throw up 21 to 28 points because you use your off week to do that type of stuff with, and then your kids went out and executed. Now all of a sudden K-State's down 2 or 3 scores. And they're handing the ball off. They're running their counter. They're running, they're pulling their center. They're pulling their tackle. They're pulling their guard. They're pulling their H-back, and you're stuffing it. And they're not able to run the ball. And they're down 3 scores. They will then start making mistakes because they have to get, it kind of gets into that desperation mode. That's what's happened to OSU. That's what OSU needs to do to K-State tomorrow. Put that kind of pressure on them. Yeah, no,
I 100% agree. It's when you do make a team one-dimensional and you kind of know what they have to do, it's much easier to defend. I can tell you that much. I just think that I truly think that the defense is going to be a huge tell on how the game's going to go. Because I just don't see us scoring, 40 points a game. It's just not realistic. Not this year. Not with the guys that we've had. So the defense, they're going to have to help the offense out for sure. They're going to have to play good.
K-State funnels well enough. They don't take a tremendous amount of chances defensively. I think I watched them play 100 defensive plays. I don't think I saw one safety fire.
Yeah,
the whole time. So, they're kind of like Iowa State in that vein. They're going to be very multiple in their fronts. And the way they run their fronts, they're going to run a lot of twists, a lot of things up front with their front 6, sometimes front 7. But they're going to be super safe doing it as far as keeping their secondary back and making sure they have the back end of it covered. So that makes it very difficult to have big plays, right? Which Oklahoma State, we've seen this offense, for them to score a lot of points, they need big plays. So from that perspective, that favors K-State, no doubt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, a couple of weeks ago, I was actually watching K-State and UCF. UCF is a very athletic, very, very well put together football team. And what K-State was able to do to them, is they read their keys. They do the little things. They get the little things done, and that everything else takes care of itself. But seeing what they did to UCF and stuff like that, like I said, UCF's a good football team. They're talented. They're fast. And they don't. Kansas State doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. So you have to find a way to make them make mistakes.
You're an old pitcher, Chase. It's kind of like, you have that pitcher that tries to make perfect pitches, right? And then all of a sudden it's 3-0 or 2-0 every single count, right?
Yeah.
So K-State's kind of that pitcher that instead of trying to make the perfect pitch, they just try to make good pitches, just nothing center cut, something that's kind of hard to barrel up on, and then they never walk people, and they're making you earn everything you get. And by the end of the night, nothing's ever been totally uncomfortable.
Right.
But it seems like it's harder than hell to score runs because it seems like you're having to earn everything you get. That's just kind of how K-State plays, and it works very well for them. And the next thing you know, the game's over and they've won. So, hey, it's going to be super exciting. Hopefully that doesn't happen tomorrow. Super hoping that Oklahoma State can play their best game of the year, which is squarely what they're going to have to do. So, hey, it's been a lot of fun, Chase. I know you're very busy. You've been refereeing a lot lately and all of that. So, final thoughts.
Man, I think it's going to be a good football game. I hope that the energy and the atmosphere is what I think it's going to be. If it is, I think that's definitely going to play a role. What I would advise people to do and the fans and stuff like that is don't give up on them, man. Just don't. Keep showing up even when it's hard. Keep showing up because the players feed off that, and heck, even the coaches feed off that. The energy and things like that. It's a lot more fun to play when you got a lot of people in the stands yelling for you. Yeah. I think it's going to be a good game. I hope that I think that if Oklahoma State plays clean football, I think they have a chance to win.
Yep, I agree. Okay, man. Hey, appreciate you joining me.
Yep, thank you.
All right, fans, that's it for O-State Daily for this week. I want to remind you that, hey, we're going to do this each and every week. Go to our Twitter. We are okstate_daily. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We have all the social medias. And as we go along, Chase will tell you this. We will, not tomorrow because we're both going to be at the game, but later on we will go back and we will dissect every play on our social medias. We'll throw it out there, explain exactly what happened on each play. So that's super fun. So check out our social medias. So until next time, I would like to thank you for tuning in and say, go Pokes!